Mene, Mene. Exactly. The famous phrase found in the Bible. I'm sure most of us are well familiar with the story. Unfortunately, that's not the story that we're going to be talking about. But I just loved Mene, Mene, which I'm sure we all know what that means, which simply translates to number. I promise this is going to be our last sermon on the letter to the church in Mene. I'm sure some of you could be wondering why I love or why I enjoy this letter addressed to the church of Mene. This letter found in Revelation chapter 2, starting from 8 verse. To the angel of the church in Mene write, these are the words of him who is the first and last, who died and came to life again. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life. One of the reasons why I love this portion so much is that there are promises that God, that Jesus, or there are reasons that Jesus gives on why we should be faithful to death. At the end, he promises us a crown of life. If we are faithful to death, he will give us a crown of life. Why should we be faithful to the point of death? As I read, I want you to locate or find these reasons that he gives. Then I'm going to read again for the third time. Then we'll find those reasons together. To the angel of the church in Mene write, these are the words of him who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but a synagogue of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you a crown of life. I'm sure some of you picked them along as I was reading. Now, as I will be reading for the last time, when I get to the point, I want you to count 1. If I get to the other point, I want you to count 2 as it goes 1. Then let's be together this one. These are words of him who is the first and the last. I want to hear you count. Okay, let's start from again. These are the words of him who is the first and last, who died and came to life again. I know. Yes, he knows. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you a crown of life. Those are 7 reasons why I love this letter. Today I want us to focus on what I guess is our point number 6 for 10 days. Last week we spoke about the trials and tribulations that were being faced by the church at Smyrna. We talked about how they suffered persecution, how they were killed, how they were made to be poor in the town of Smyrna. The question that comes to mind is, how long, O Lord, should we suffer? Yes, we shouldn't be afraid. Yes, he knows our afflictions and our poverty. Yes, he is the first and last. Yes, he is the Alpha and the Omega. And he says, we are definitely going to suffer. The question, therefore, is for how long, O Lord? We have suffered, some of us, for a very long time. Some are even at the point of giving up. How long, O Lord, are we supposed to still be faithful in all these afflictions, in all these challenges that we are going through? He says in verse 10, do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Now, 10 days could be explained in different ways. Some could take it literally as 10 days. Some could explain it as each day for a year, meaning 10 years. Some explain it as the period of 10 years where a certain empire was leading the Roman Empire at the time the church was facing persecution. We are not going to focus on what exactly does 10 days mean, but we're going to focus on the context of 10 days. Jesus says to the church of Smyrna, I know you suffered, I know your persecution, but in this persecution, you must understand one thing, that your days of persecution are numbered. Your persecution is going to be for 10 days. Not 5, not 6, not 7 days, but 10 days. Not 11, not 12, but your persecution is going to be for 10 days. In other words, God sat down and made some calculations that this church of Smyrna, which is supposed to face certain persecutions, I'm going to allow all these things to happen over a period of 10 days. Otherwise, if I let it go on for a little bit longer, I might lose the church of Smyrna. God, in his calculations, knew that 10 days of persecution is perfect for the church of Smyrna to be prepared for his kingdom. He knows our challenges, as he said. He knows our persecution. But all that we are facing today, he wants us to know that it has been numbered. Your challenges are numbered. Your days of suffering are numbered. Your days of suffering are many. They are not going to be longer than the 10 days. We face our 10 days in different ways. We face our 10 days in different time periods. But God has calculated them so well, and he knows that me and you can endure those 10 days of suffering. You are going to suffer for 10 days. Then after that 10 days, your crown of life is ready. God knows that the 10 days is enough for your trials, for your tribulations. Not a day less, not a day more. Our 10 days come in different ways. There is a certain joke that I saw somewhere, where a certain man visits a doctor and is asked about his doctor about his lifestyle, how he lives, how he eats, and all that stuff. He's asked if he drinks. He says, occasionally. Once in a while, maybe we are celebrating or I'm invited at a party or whatever. Okay. How much do you drink on these occasions? He says, only one glass. Then maybe another, if that one is finished. Then another one. Maybe until I pass out. Then when I wake up, I drink one more as well. And another one until I pass out. Okay. Then he continues, why do you drink so much? He says, because I have headaches if I don't drink. Alright. You have headaches, so you drink to avoid headaches. Say yes. Alright, what causes these headaches? He says, I don't know. But if I see my wife, I drink. Alright. Why do you drink? Because I know if she starts talking, I'm going to have a headache. So every time I see her, I drink. And I drink another one until I pass it out. When I wake up, I see her again, I drink another one. So the doctor says to him, so do you see what's your problem? He says, yes, I don't drink enough. The doctor says, no. Your problem is the wife not drinking enough. Our 10 days come in different forms, in different ways. Some of our 10 days or times of trials come through kids, some come through spouses, some may even come through church members. But no matter how they come, I want us to focus on the message that says, our 10 days are numbered. We are not going to suffer forever. We are not going to be in trials and tribulations forever. God has saw it fit and has calculated it perfectly and made sure that in those 10 days we will have all the strength and courage to be faithful to him. We have a lot of people we find in the Bible that have gone through their times of challenges. We have popular people like Job, whom I'm not going to talk about today, who also suffered for a certain period. But after that suffering, after their 10 days, after their numbered days of suffering, we see everything restored to them. Today, let's choose someone else who went through his 10 days of suffering and see how he overcame and how he went through his 10 days of suffering. In the book of 2 Samuel, we find 2 Samuel chapter 15. We find one of God's loved kings, King David himself, chosen by God to lead. Chapter 15 begins by explaining Absalom taking 50 men and horses to lead him ahead. If you read from chapter 14, we find Absalom saying to his father, I want to go to a certain place where I had made a promise with God, and I want to go there and make an offering. Absalom goes to the town of Hebron. While he is in town, while he is in Hebron, he gathers men around him. Before he gathers men around him, he used to have a tendency of waiting outside the city gates or the palace gates when everyone was coming in to be judged, to come before the king. He would approach them and be nice to them. He would even give them kisses and say to them, I wish I was the one in charge of your case, and I was going to be very favorable. I was going to make sure that you win your case because I understand you. By so doing, he gains favor from the community, from everyone who is coming to see the case. Little did the king know that Absalom was planning a rebellion. One of the days, while he is away in Hebron, in disguise of going to make an offering, he plans, and his plans are now complete. It's time for him to execute his takeover from his father. Chapter 15 verse 13 says, a messenger came to David and told David, the hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom. Then David said to all his officials who came with him in Jerusalem, come, we must flee, or none of us will escape. We must leave immediately, and he will move quickly and overtake us, and bring ruin upon us, and put the city to the sword. As King David is relaxing in his palace, a message comes through, and the message says, King, your son, whom you love so much, Absalom, he has convinced a large group of men in this nation to follow him. They've actually declared him king, and he is coming to take over. He's coming to kill you and take over the kingdom. When the message is delivered, David says to his officials who were with him in Jerusalem, "Come, let us flee. Or none of us will escape Absalom. We must leave immediately, or he will move quickly to take us and bring ruin upon us and put the city to the sword." This is David who killed Goliath. This is David who has won many battles. This is David who is favored by God and walks with God. When the message comes, David says, "Come, we must flee." He's not thinking of fighting because David knows his son so well and says, "None of us will escape this man if he comes here. This is my son. I know what he's capable of. I know what he can do. Come on, let's run away." The king runs away from his palace. Not only does he leave the palace behind, he's leaving the throne of the kingdom. His 10 days of persecution has begun. The man who was a king a few moments ago is now a nobody, planning to escape from his home. The Bible says King David gathers his bodyguards. He gathers his men, the army that was around in Jerusalem, and they quickly make way out of Jerusalem. As you read, the Bible explains who were the men around him. As you get to chapter 16, David is on his way. Chapter 16, verse 5. As King David approached Bahurim, a man from the same clan as Saul's family came out from there. His name was Shimei, son of Gera. He cursed as he came out. He pelted David and all of the officials with stones, through all the troops and the special guards which were on David's right and left. Shimei cursed and said, "Get out, you men of blood, you scoundrel. The Lord has repaid you for all the blood you have shed." As David goes on, verse 13. So David and his men continued along the road, while Shimei was going alongside the hillside opposite him, cursing him as he went and throwing stones at him and showering him with dirt. David is running away. The Bible says, as he's running away, he is crying, and the people around him are crying as well. David was in a hurry to leave his palace to the point that he even forgot to put on his shoes. He's running barefooted, and the men around him are also running barefooted. They are all weeping. They are all crying. David, being the man who loved music, with the choir around him, instead of singing to uplift the spirit of the king, they are also crying around him. His 10 days has taken him from the throne. The man who was a king is a nobody. He is now suffering. And here comes a man, Shimei, the son of Gera. Normally when a king is passing through, those who come towards him, come to meet him, come to salute the king, come to pay their respects. This man comes towards the king, not to welcome the king, but to insult him. These are the same people who recognized David as king. But as soon as his 10 days of suffering began, even those who used to acknowledge him are against him. Many a times when we are passing through our 10 days of persecution, even those who once supported us, who once stood by us, they desert us and go against us. Shimei is pelting the king with stones. He's shouting at the king. The Bible says he's walking alongside, opposite him, on a hillside, cursing, throwing stones, and showering him with the dirt. This shows the effort that Shimei went to make the king suffer. He is on a hilltop. Hills are normally full. It's a place where we know is full of rocks. Shimei is making an effort to find dirt on a hilltop so that he can pelt, he can throw that dirt on the king. Chapter 16 verse 9 says, Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said to the king, Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over there and cut off his head. One of his bodyguards, a trusted one, says to the king, King, I cannot take this anymore. I can't let this dog, not just a dog, but a dead dog, insult my king. Why don't I go over there and cut his head off? David is going through his 10 days of persecution. He's going through his 10 days of suffering. David is going through his time of trial. And here comes Abishai, his bodyguard, who offers a quick solution to one of the problems. Why don't I cut his head off? This man had called the king a scoundrel, a scumbag. He had called the king a good-for-nothing somebody. He had called the king a rascal. And someone steps up to solve that problem. David says, no, let him. Let's find out what type of men were around David when he was going through this suffering or this persecution. Sometimes when we are in challenges, we ask, where is God in all this? Is God not able to solve these afflictions, these persecutions that we are going through? The same question we can ask of David. Why is the one man is pelting the king with the stones, is making dust, is pelting the king with sand? Didn't he have men good enough to protect him? The Bible tells us that when David was leaving Jerusalem, he had his bodyguards with him. He had his powerful men around him, on his left and on his right. Who were these mighty men that were around David? 2 Samuel 23 from verse 8. 2 Samuel 23 verse 8. These are the names of David's mighty men. Let's find out who were David's men. Joseph Bathsheba, a Tekemonite, was the chief of the three. He raised his spear against 800 men whom he killed with one encounter. One of the bodyguards was Joseph. This man had killed 800 men with the spear, with his spear. He fought 800 men and killed them all. He's one of the bodyguards that is around King David. And with a man so feared and capable of doing great things like this, still we find Shimei cursing at the king. Next to him was Eleazar, son of Dodai, the Arwite. As one of the three mighty men, he was with David when they taunted the Philistines gathered at Pasdemim for battle. Then the men of Israel retreated, but he stood his ground and struck down the Philistines till his hand grew tired and froze to the sword. The Lord brought about a great victory that day. One of the bodyguards around King David is Eleazar, the man who fought till his hand froze to the sword and killed so many Philistines that they got victory that day. Feared men who had done great things in battle were around David, but Shimei is still walking alongside the king, pelting him with the stones. Next to him was Shammah, son of Agi, the Hararite. When the Philistines banded together at a palace where there was full of lentils, Israel troops fled from them, but Shammah took his stand in the middle of the field. He defended it and struck the Philistines down, and the Lord brought about a great victory. Here is Shammah, the man who took a stand against the army of the Philistines and defended the fields full of lentils and won the battle against any army. During the harvest time, 3 of David's 30 chief men came down to David at the cave in Adullam, while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley at Raphaim. At that time, David was in the stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was in Bethlehem. David longed for water. David is hiding in a cave. And whilst the Philistines are camped in Bethlehem, he says to his men, I long for water from the well in Bethlehem. And some of these 3 men decided to go to Bethlehem, broke through the defenses of the Philistines, went into the well, and fought their way back to the king and gave him the water. These are the type of men around David. Verse 18, Abishai, the brother of Joab, son of Zeruiah, was the chief of the 3. He raised his spear and killed 300 men, whom he killed, and so he became as famous as the 3. Abishai, the man who offers to go and cut Shimei's head, was known for the battle where he killed 300 men, and is around David as they are weeping, as they are crying. as they are running away. Then there's Mene, son of Jehoiada, was a valiant fighter from Kabzeel who performed great exploits. He struck down 2 of Moab's best men. He also went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. He struck down a huge Egyptian. Although the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, Mene went against him with a club, snatched the spear from the Egyptian's hand, and killed him with his own spear. David is surrounded by fearsome men. He's surrounded by men that have done great things in war. But with all these men around him, Shimei continues taunting him. He pelts stones at him. He continues persecuting the king. Abishai says, let me cut off his head. David says no. He doesn't want Abishai's solution to this problem. He wants God's solution in this persecution. Many a times when we are going through our days of persecution, many a times when we are going through our days of suffering, people like Abishai present themselves and offer us quick ways or shortcuts to these problems. They offer us other options on how we should encounter or on how we should solve these things. This brings to mind the men Abraham and Sarah. When they are going through their times, their days of challenges, when their promise that they were waiting for is not coming to that fulfillment that they were waiting for, they devise a plan B to the problem. They devise a solution and bring Hagar as plan B. At the end, we find how that turns out, because that wasn't God's plan. David understands that this problem, this persecution, he has to go through. And when his 10 days of suffering have come to an end, God will save him. He doesn't want a human intervention to his problems. He doesn't want someone to cut his 10 days of persecution short, because he understands that God has numbered them. When we are going through our 10 days of persecution, some people might offer us options on day 4. Some people might offer us options on day 5. But God has numbered your days of persecution. And He knows that 10 days is perfect for you. Let nothing or no one cut those days short. David and his men continued along the road while Shimei was alongside with them. David is focused. He knows and he can hear Shimei shouting from a distance. He doesn't stop his men and say, let's solve this problem first. David knows his goal, where he's going, and why he's going. A little bit dust from Shimei doesn't deter him, doesn't divert his focus. Sometimes our persecutions are so big and challenging. Sometimes our persecutions are just someone throwing the dust at us. Like David, we don't have to stop and fight Shimei. we have to be focused and be faithful till death. Most of us, in many times, tend to be taken off course by minor things. I read a post where someone was saying, this festive season, it's okay to be foolish for those who go to taverns and drink, who go to public places where you meet a lot of people. He was saying, allow them to step on your foot and don't make a deal out of it. Just walk away. Don't let anyone who throws dust on you divert your focus on why you are there. Because many people have got into fights and some lost their lives. Many ended up in hospitals because of little things that they could have ignored. Because of someone just throwing dust at you. David could have stopped his army and pursued Shimei. But because he knew the reasons where he was going and why he had to go, he focused on his journey. And he knew that his persecution is numbered. He knew that his persecution was not going to last forever. He knew that his persecution was for a time. In the fullness of time, God was going to save him. In the fullness of time, his 10 days of persecution was going to come to an end. He understood that his persecution was not forever. Even though he had options, even though he had men who were capable of fighting, he could have just said to the people around him, let's take positions and defend the city of Jerusalem against Absalom. Let's fight and save ourselves. Let's fight and kill them all. But no, he trusted God. And he knew that his persecution was for a short time. Jesus says to the church at Smyrna, I know you are poor. I know you are suffering. I know maybe you have other options that you can do to save yourself. But don't worry. All these persecutions are only for a short time. All this, what you are going through are only for 10 days. Don't make a plan on the second day. No, don't make a plan on the 8th or on the 9th day. God will save you on the 10th day as he promised. He will not let it long until the 11th day. Your trials, your tribulations, your poverty, whatever you are going through similar today, even though they are killing your pastors, your persecution is numbered. It's not gonna last forever. Just hold on till the 10th day. Then your crown of life will be ready. Matthew chapter 26, verse 39. Jesus is going through Matthew 26, verse 39. Jesus is going through his time. Verse 39. Jesus is going through his time of trials. He's going through his time of challenging, of persecution. And he prays to his Father. In his prayer, he cries, Lord, this is too much. Verse 39. Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." He's going through his 10 days of persecution. He's going through his 10 days of trials. He's going through his numbered days of suffering. And he says, "This is too much, O Lord. If it is possible, my Father, may this cup be taken from me. But not my will. Let your will be done." God is able to send angels to come and save Jesus from such a situation. Like David, who had men who were capable of defending or fighting for him. Jesus says, "Let my will not be done, but God's will." God didn't cut Jesus' time of suffering short. No, he let him endure. He let him go through persecution. He let him face his 10 days of suffering. And finally, he's hanging on the cross. His 10 days are over, and Sunday morning, he rose victorious, ready to assume his crown and his throne. The same God says to us today, persevere, endure your suffering. For how long, O Lord? He says only for 10 days. Your 10 days could be a year or two. Your 10 days of suffering could be months. But endure your 10 days of suffering. While enduring that time of suffering, know that He has numbered it. He has numbered your days of suffering. You are not going to suffer forever, but it's only for a short period of time. Then your crown of life is waiting for you. Let's close by Psalms 30 verse 5. David faces Shimei, continues with his journey to their safe point. As they are safe, now at the end of his 10 days, a command is given out. Men are sent out to go and hunt Absalom after he had done despicable things at the palace, where he found some of the concubines that David had left in Jerusalem. After doing disgustful things, at the end of David's 10 days, an army is sent after him with a command not to kill him. At the end, Absalom is killed against David's wishes. David is returned back to Jerusalem to assume his throne. Back again as a king, he's celebrated, he's welcomed. Among the people that welcome David to Jerusalem is the man Shimei himself. The man who scorned and insulted the king comes before the king. He takes even a risk to cross a river that was flooding to come before David. The Bible says he comes before David, falls on his face, and asks for forgiveness. David saves his life, keeps focused, goes back to Jerusalem, back into his palace, and assumes the throne. Psalms 25. Psalms 30, sorry. Verse 5 says, "For his anger lasts only a moment, but his favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping may remain for a night, but rejoicing comes in the morning." For his anger lasts only for a moment. Allow me to rewrite this translation this way. For his anger lasts only for 10 days, but his favor lasts forever. Weeping may remain for a night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. For his anger lasts only for a short period of time, but the crown of life lasts forever. Persecution, weeping, poverty, suffering may remain only for a night, but joy comes in the morning. David went through his 10 days of persecution, and he says, "I know it's only for a numbered time. It's only for numbered days. I know my persecution, my suffering, it's just for a short period of time. My life could be in danger. I could be having nothing to eat. I could be struggling to survive. I could be jobless. I could be struggling with some sicknesses. I could be suffering. But it's only for a moment. It's only for a night. It's only for 10 days. Then my crown of life for a lifetime will come. It's only for the night. But joy comes in the morning. Our suffering is numbered. At the end of the 10 days,